Liberalization of Zambia's economy. President Fredrick Chiluba, Zambia's second president, encouraged the neoliberal agenda of complete liberalization as the centerpiece of his economic policy for Zambia and embraced it hook, line, and sinker. The central theme of a liberalized economy is that government should not run businesses. Instead, it advocates that all business must be private sector driven. There were to be no sacred cows, meaning that all public owned enterprises were either privatized or outrightly closed. The heart of neoliberalism requires a politico-economic philosophy that de-emphasizes or rejects national government's intervention in the domestic economy. At best, it supports free markets with few restrictions on business and property rights. It also promotes reducing the role of national governments to a minimum by supporting a laissez-faire attitude towards direct intervention on social issues, protectionism of strategic natural resources, and the environment. Neoliberalism is often at odds with fair trade, labor rights, economic and social justice. Some have argued that some of Zambia's crown jewel industries, like the copper mines, were sold for next to nothing. An argument is made that under Dr. Kaunda, Zambia's founding president, the country's economy had serious liquidity problems, but all the national assets were still intact. What the country needed was streamlining and recapitalization of most of its industries, and not the rampant sale of everything. Under the Chiluba policy of privatization at all cost, the country's economy was not only broke, but now had no assets also, because they were cheaply sold mostly to foreign investors amid these serious accusations of graft. But President Chiluba maintained that privatization was a central policy in freeing the economy. He argued that when he took over the presidency in 1991, the state was engaged in baking bread and providing bus transportation, and that the government was subsidizing loss-making entities. The copper mines were hemorrhaging money to a tune of $1 million per day at the time, and the government was itself facing serious financial difficulties and a huge external debt in excess of $7 billion. President Chiluba also observed that there was no learning curve. There were almost 300 limping companies running the economy that had to be placed in private hands. Some jobs were inevitably lost, especially at loss-making companies that were wound up as soon as they were sold. President Chiluba further argued that, as a policy, privatization is a success. It brought efficiency and predictability to the economy. The money that was spent on subsidizing and government subventions can now be spent properly elsewhere. The mining sector has experienced exponential growth. The temporary losses have been made up by new employers in the economy. But Mr. James Matale, the first chief executive officer of the Zambia Privatization Agency, ZPA, disagreed. The Zambia Privatization Agency was the primary government-appointed institution created to sell off all public enterprises previously owned by the Zambian government. He contended that privatization was touted as the panacea for Zambia's economic ills. Mr. Matale added that, but it is led by powerful business interests connected to government who treat enterprises and assets lined up for privatization as goods fallen from the back of a delivery truck. There is a lot of corruption. Mr. Matale regarded it as surprising that Zambia was still pursuing privatization in its development agenda. Based on his experience, he believed a capital injection into state-owned enterprises and less government interference in their operations would put them back on an even keel.